Good afternoon, everyone. We had good food for the tummy, now food for thought. Thank you, Commander, for your kind words. It's been a very, very satisfying journey together. I mean, I met Commander Das in the month of March in 2017, exactly 6 years ago, and he came out of nowhere and he said, "Sir, I want you to be my advisor." I said, "I don't know what you do. Will you tell me a little bit of what you do?" So he told me something about underwater domain awareness and how he built the sonar classifier for our nuclear submarine, the INS Ariant. And for me, it was all bonkers. I didn't understand anything at all of what he said. So I told him that I don't understand anything of what you are doing and what advice can I give you? He says, no, no, I want you. I said, I can't promise you anything, but let's see what we can do. All baby steps. That's what I believe in. All big things start small. So 6 years ago, when we started, we didn't know where to go, how it would shape up. But looking back now, it's a very, very satisfying journey. I'm so happy that I've been associated with MRC because I had my own challenges on the work front where I was going through a bad phase. So MRC has really bailed me out. But now I can blame Commander for उन्होंने मुझे डुबो दिया. Really, I keep telling everyone that since I met him, मैं तो पूरा डूब गया. That's just in a lighter vein. But it's really been very nice building up MRC together. And today we can say that we have got the support of the likes of Ambassador Mudgal, who's been our mentor. He's opened so many doors for us in Delhi, and he's been kind here to come and spend 3 days with us here. Thank you, sir. Thank you. We really appreciate your presence. And we have had many more mentors like this who've been very kind. I always used to tell Commander that there is this phrase that no army can stop an idea whose time has come. So I tweaked it a little bit and I said, no Navy can stop an idea whose time has come. You know, this is the first time I'm saying this in public because I was scared the Navy guys might not take to it nicely. Who's this upstart talking like this about the Navy? I've got a lot of respect for the Navy, huge respect. It's not in any way it shouldn't be taken otherwise. But I feel that coming from the Navy, the perspective Commander Das has, no, it's a very 360-degree perspective. It's not. Sometimes we all have our blind sides. We all get blinded and develop a tunnel vision, and we just look at things in a very, very narrow way, very myopic way. So I really appreciate the way Commander Das's approach is and the way he looks at the world, and we've become good friends. We've traveled a lot together. We go for long walks where we discuss what we need to do next. So it's been very nice. So that's about our relationship, my relationship with MRC. I'm advisor there for the blue economy. About me, I'm a logistician, a career logistician, and I did all the wrong things in life in the sense that I wanted to become an engineer, ended up doing BCom, wanted to go to the US to do my MBA. My parents didn't want me to go, so I ended up doing journalism and law. But on hindsight, I think that's how destiny wanted it to be. And I'm so glad. But during this journey, I've been a student of history and geography. I've always been interested and history. So this one thing used to really bother me, this question, why was Pakistan created? It really, really bothered me right since my childhood. And the second thing about history, which really bothered me was, my grandfather used to tell me stories about historical figures and all. And I used to always wonder as a small kid that if everyone was so great, then why did India go through such hell? There has to be some gap somewhere, something wrong somewhere. So this led me to, and my love for geography. My friend here is Amol is here, my classmates from school, Rakesh and Amol. So we used to study geography together. And this combination of history and geography got drew me, and the reason to find out why Pakistan was created, I got involved with geopolitics. And in 2010, I was invited to become a member of IISS, the International Institute for Strategic Studies. And it's really been very heartening. Since then, I've learned a lot from all the people I've met, and I still call myself a student of history. My business is logistics. Our company, Dynamic Logistics, has the credit of having put the just-in-time inventory system in place for Tata Motors. The first time it was done in India. Another first to the credit of Dynamic is that we set up the first dry port in the private sector in India and the first air cargo complex in the private sector. In fact, the policy was framed because of us. So these are the credits to Dynamic Logistics. Now, without further ado, I'll get into that presentation, please. One thing I can tell you, if you sit through this presentation, I can assure you, you'll never ever look at the world map in the same way again. Guaranteed. I really guarantee this. You'll never ever look at the world map in the same way again. So the the topic is the choke points of power and the master keys that control world trade. This is what the British call these points. So when the British mapped the world, when the lat-long grid was born, now first it was the prime meridian, and then, so prime meridian, if we had to do it, guys from Pune, we would say it should be Pune, right? So when the British did it, they said it should be London. See, in ancient history, there have been different prime meridians. Prime meridian is it's a purely arbitrary line. There's nothing like God drew that line or something. It's a purely arbitrary line drawn by human beings. So when the Roman Empire was there, the prime meridian was Rome. As per the Hindu calendar, it is Ujjain. So आप अगर आपकी जन्मपत्री बनाने जाएंगे तो पंडित जी आपसे पूछेंगे आपका जन्म कहाँ हुआ था, समय और कहाँ हुआ था. So that's how it is mapped. So the prime meridian was created by the British, and that's why we are locked into. So the prime meridian was mapped by the British, and that's how the lat-long grid, and that's how the GPS, right? This is the 70, 80, 90 principle. 70% of the world is water. 80% of the population lives within 200 nautical miles of the water, of the sea and the access to the sea. 80% of the population of the world. And in fact, it is getting lesser. Despite of global warming and the rise of the oceans and the seas, the population is moving closer and closer to the oceans. And 90% of world trade goes by sea. The cheapest form of transport is water transport. Road is almost 8 times more. 8 times. Right? This is Sir Halford Mackinder. He is the first person to have started teaching geography as a formal subject. Before that, geography was never taught as a formal subject. We Indians said, Bhugol hai, and left it at that. We didn't go and prove that it is round. We just said it is goal, which is right. Nothing wrong about it. But Halford Mackinder is the first person to have, he was the head of Department of Geography at Oxford University in the late 1800s. And not just that, today he is considered to be the father of geostrategy and geopolitics. This gentleman is considered to be the father of geostrategy. That I heard a very interesting term for in Hindi, first time, at the Raisina dialogue. Geostrategy has been called Bhu Rajniti. मैंने पहली बार सुना. So that is, he's the father of geostrategy and geopolitics. And not just that, he wrote a theory called the Heartland Theory. And that is exactly the reason why Ukraine is being fought for today. So hard and such a bitter fight. The world, I mean, we're all scared what will happen next. It's because of Halford Mackinder. And not just that, he's the first person who understood the connect between geography and economics. He's the founder director of the London School of Economics. He's one of the founder directors of the London School of. So see these hybrid subjects, geopolitics, geoeconomics. Now that day I heard the foreign minister, Mr. Jaishankar, saying that every Indian is now interested in understanding India's foreign policy. Because as we get more globally integrated, every Indian is taking interest because it's affecting our markets, it's affecting everything, our industry, our economy, everything. So that's why we all need to take more interest. In fact, there's a friend of mine who's just taken over as the VC of Gokhale Institute. Ajit Ranade, Dr. Ranade, I've been telling him Gokhale Institute should start a course in geopolitics and geoeconomics. Most of our universities, I don't think it's taught anywhere in our schools and colleges and universities. So, sir, I would urge you to please spread this message that we should teach geopolitics and geoeconomics. Bhu Rajniti. So this is the human meridians which are used in our ancient shastras, and the pressure points and all. So that's when the British, when they mapped the world and the lat long grid was born, they realized there are 11 points on the world map, which if you control, you can control world trade. All the geopolitics of the world, all the geoeconomics of the world is linked to these points. So I'll take you through a brief history of these things. Next. So that's the prime meridian and the lat long grid. Next. And this is Admiral John Fisher. He served on a ship called the HMS Calcutta. Her Majesty's Service, Calcutta. And when he died, he wrote in his will that he should be buried near the hull of the HMS Calcutta. So that's where he has been buried. And he is the gentleman who identified these 11 points. He's considered to be the second most influential naval leader of the UK after Lord Nelson. Lord Nelson fought for the choke point of Gibraltar, and that's where, so when his body was taken, the nation UK celebrated and cried. The Queen cried for the death of Lord Nelson. So John Fisher identified these choke points. So these are the 11 choke points. I'll tell you. A choke point is, if anyone has seen how a dog is trained, they use a choke. They literally, it's like a fasi ka fanda. Usko choke karo, and that's it. So all military strategy, all naval strategy is choke points. And in fact, in so many spheres of our life, this is how it goes. So it'll be very instructive if you ever get a chance to go and see a dog training session. Here at the police ground, they have a dog training session. Please go and see it. We are not very different. There's a Russian scientist, Anton Pavlov, who studied dogs and their psychology, how they are trained, and these techniques are used in the armies of the world even today. Anton Pavlov. So these are the 11 choke points of the world. I've related them to cities. And most of them are tax havens as well. All the money of the world moves through these points. So I'll take you through from left to right, from the west to east. The first one is next. Panama. The Panama Canal was conceived by a Frenchman called, what's his name? Sorry. So both these canals, the Panama Canal and the Suez Canal, were conceived by the French, initiated by the French, but the Panama they couldn't build. The Americans came and completed it. So and that's where the city of Panama is. You must have heard and read about the Panama Papers. So many of our Indian politicians, including Amitabh Bachchan also was, and Nawaz Sharif were all involved with the Panama Papers. So we don't know how it affects our economy, but that's there for you to ponder. Next. So Panama Canal is like it's like a step, a ladder from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. So ships have to be taken up and then kept down. That's how it is. It's a system of locks. There are 7 locks. It's very interesting to see how a ship goes through the canal. They've just recently doubled the size of the canal. So this is the Panama Canal between the Atlantic and the Panama City. See, Panama is choked. You have to go right around Cape Horn, which is impossible. Cape Horn is considered to be the Mount Everest of the Capes. It's impossible to navigate the big ships. Big ships don't use those. It's not a route for voyages. So Cape Horn is out. No sailboats can go through there. So there is a possibility to build another canal because there's so much traffic there. It's literally worse than Pune traffic. Chock-a-block, the ships are waiting to get in queue to go through the canal. Because that's the only way you can get from the Atlantic to the Pacific and the other way around as well. So there's a possibility to build a Nicaragua canal. So all these Contras and Nicaragua and Iran deals and everything, sir, you're talking about it yesterday, is linked to this. It's linked to this. And this was considered before the Panama Canal was built. Now the Chinese have given a proposal to put in $50 billion. It's a Hong Kong company and they want to build it. So, but there's a lot of politics before it will get built. We don't know whether it'll get built or not. See, all the drug money of Latin America, all channelized through Panama into wherever it goes across the US and everything. So, yeah, see, if Panama is choked, this is the route you have to take. So, America would need two navies, one for the Atlantic coast and one for the Pacific coast. Just imagine the cost if Panama is choked. And it's an impossible route. You can't take. The first guy to have navigated around there was Ferdinand Magellan, who went around and circumnavigated the globe. He couldn't finish the journey. He died. But yes, his crew completed the journey. He was the first person. And he took this route also from next. This is the southernmost city in the world, Ushuaia. And that's where a lot of, if you want to go to Antarctica, you'll have to go to Ushuaia and then they'll take you from there. To Ushuaia and Cape Horn, next. So this is the route which Ferdinand Magellan took. See those red arrows? The Straits of Magellan. They're called the Straits of Magellan. And the Drake Passage. Drake Passage was the guy, Francis Drake was a pirate who saved the British and Queen Elizabeth from the Spanish Armada. So that is named after him. These are all pirates. Next. So this is a satellite photograph of the Strait of Magellan. Next. Yeah, next. These are the Falkland Islands. These islands are 8,000 kilometers away from London. But the UK will not give it up. They have gone to war. They have threatened the Argentinians. The Argentinians call them Malvinas, the island of Malvinas. And they have threatened the Argentinians with a nuclear. They deployed their nuclear submarine and they said, if you don't back up, we'll blow you out. So that is the extent to which, if anyone wants to tamper with these points, this is where it could lead to a third world war. Ukraine might not lead to a third world war, but this could. Next. This is the Rock of Gibraltar. In ancient Greek mythology, they are called the Pillars of Hercules. They're called the Pillars of Hercules. This is also a tax haven. This mountain is full of artillery. They've hollowed it from inside. There are a lot of guns inside there. I've been there. Next. This is the only entry and exit from the Atlantic into the Mediterranean and vice versa. There is no other way to go. There is absolutely no other way. And this is where the British won against the Spaniards. And that's how they won it. And now the Spaniards have been begging, threatening, everything possible, but the Brits are not willing to. It's just a 7.5 square kilometer piece of rock. That's it. But it's British territory and a tax haven. Next. This is it. That airstrip is UK and this side is Spain. That's it. The Rock of Gibraltar. And from the Rock of Gibraltar, you can see Africa. You can see Morocco on the other side. On a clear day, you can see Africa. Next. The fourth one is the Straits of Dover, the English Channel. Half the shipping traffic of the world goes through the English Channel. And one of the reasons why the Brits have chosen to do a Brexit is because all the big ports of Europe are upstream. So they can choke them all here. Hamburg, Antwerp, and Rotterdam can be choked here. So British have this leverage, and that's why they've exited Britain. There is something behind there which we don't understand. They can choke all the cargo in Europe. All the three big ports of Europe are ahead, up there. Next. This is, you can see the white cliffs of Dover. That's England from France. This view is from France into England, the white cliffs of Dover. Next. The fifth point is the Danish Straits, Denmark. Recently, it was in the news. Now, Denmark is the Baltic Sea, and the Russians, if they can't get out of here, they can't enter the Atlantic. So Denmark was won by the British again here, and the biggest shipping line of the world is headquartered in Copenhagen here in Denmark. I used to always wonder how come, why did the biggest shipping line of the world come out of Denmark? Tiny little nation, but this is the reason. Because every Russian submarine, everything can be controlled and choked here in Denmark. So these are all small, small islands, and that's it. Next. Yeah, that's Copenhagen. Copenhagen is Copenhagen, and that's the only route you can take. There's no other way. Next. This is the famous mermaid, and recently she was in the news because some guys vandalized it and painted the Russian flag on it, on the rock below, just 2-3 days back. It was in the news. So this mermaid was sitting on a Russian flag. I don't know who did it. And everyone's wondering who did it. Next. The sixth one is Istanbul. See, Istanbul became Istanbul in 1453. Till then, it was Constantinople. And it was Mehmed the First, who won Istanbul in 1453 and pushed back the Eastern Roman Empire. That was the end of the Eastern Roman Empire. And it's the Eastern Roman Empire, the Orthodox Church of the Eastern Roman Empire, which went into Russia. They draw all their lineage from this church, the Russians. And this is very significant for us Indians. 1453. Within 40 years of the fall of Istanbul, the Americas were discovered by Christopher Columbus trying to come to India. And within 50 years, Vasco da Gama landed on our shores, within 50 years of the fall of Istanbul. Till then, the route was the land route. And because they started extracting more heavier tolls, it became unviable. And that is why the Portuguese and the Spaniards, who are outermost on the Atlantic, ventured out to sea, trying to find a route to India. So this is it again. This whole Ukraine, Crimea, everything is because of the state. And that is the leverage which the Turks have over Russia and over the rest of. See, Turkey is not a NATO country, but it's a major non-NATO ally. It's a major non-NATO ally. Yeah, so but it's a major. The status is a. Yeah, they're not part of the European Union, but yes, they're part of NATO. Sorry, I would put it that way. Yeah. Sorry, thank you for correcting, sir. So here you can see the white is the Black Sea. Sorry, the colors all. So, and there, the island there is the Crimea. That is where the fighting is to control the Crimea. Crimea was always part of Russia, though it's a very ancient history which goes thousands of years. Ukraine and Russia, but the Russians need that. It's very, very strategic for them because see, Russia. The problem of Russia is it's the largest country in the world even today, even after the breakup of the Soviet Union. You know, to give you an idea of what Russia is, the size of Russia, India is 1.5 time zones. We made it one time zone for the matter of convenience, for the sake of convenience, one time zone. Russia is 11 time zones. It's right from Japan here, from Alaska, that side, right into Europe. It's 11 time zones. Can you imagine the expanse of Russia? We are 1.5. They are 11 time zones. For convenience, they made it 9 time zones. The problem of Russia is it's got everything in industrial quantity, huge wealth, massive amount of everything possible in industrial quantities. The problem is it's virtually landlocked. The ports are frozen 8 to 9 months in a year. So what do you do? How do you take that cargo out? How do you evacuate? So they can be choked here in Istanbul. Half the city of Istanbul is in Asia, half of it is in Europe. That's how it is positioned. Next. This is Istanbul. Yeah, this will give you a big picture of the things. See, the dark green is the Greek islands. So the shipping of the world is owned by the Greeks. the Norwegians and the Danes. And the guys who man them are the Chinese, the Indians, and the Filipinos. Now, the Chinese have got into the game. They have also become big ship owners. The Koreans are there. The Japanese are there. But still, by and large, this is how it is. So those dark green is the islands of Greece. See, the white there is the Baltic. You can see Copenhagen there. You have this pointer? Okay, no problem. Right? The white up there is the Baltic. The white here, this side is the Black Sea. And you can see Spain and Portugal right out there. There's Gibraltar, the Dover Straits, the English Channel, and there are 4 chalk points here. The 4 chalk points there. Next. Turkey, this is, see, that's where Istanbul is, next to Greece. Greece, again, is the mother of Western civilization. Whether it goes bankrupt or whatever it is, they will never give up on Greece. It's a very strategic location. Extremely strategic. They can't still trust the Turks. The Turks call the European Union a Christian club. They call it a Christian club. Now they said they've given up on the idea of trying to become a member of the European Union. Next. So this is the Suez Canal. The Suez Canal, next. You can see this is a big picture. Yeah, go ahead. Next. Yeah, this is, see, this is like 2 fingers of yours. The longer one is the Suez Canal, and the other one is the Gulf of Suez and the Gulf of Aqaba. Aqaba is a port in Jordan. That. And that's where Israel is, at the tip. Israel is the size of Pune district. Exactly the size of Pune district. And the population of Pune district, 8 million people. I went to Israel in 2 delegations, in the Homeland Security delegation and the Cyber Security delegation. It's a tiny little place. It's like a lab. It's literally like a lab. Fantastic ideas, everything. So the Israelis were telling us, we've got all the great ideas of the world. We've got the brains of both the superpowers, the Americans and the Russians. That's what they told us. We've got the brains of both the superpowers, the Americans and the Russians. And now we've got such great ideas. So where do we scale them up? How do we scale these ideas? Now the Americans have plateaued out. The Chinese, we don't trust them. So they're looking at India. How to scale ideas. So we are a big market, 1.4 billion people. And that's how the Israelis look at India. Next. Sorry, just go back. I just want to tell you one more thing. See, there is a possibility. See, the idea of Israel was born during the First World War, during the currency of the war, in 1917. There was a bill in Parliament, in the British Parliament, which was moved. It was called the Declaration of Balfour. And they decided that the Jews are being persecuted much before the Second World War, before Hitler did whatever he did, and said, no, they should get a homeland of their own. So the idea was born in 1917 and implemented after the Second World War. Because there is a possibility to build another canal there. It's called the Red Sea Canal. Because, see, when the Suez got choked recently, the whole shipping of the world went for haywire. I mean, it's taken months. Even now, it's still not normalized in the true sense of the word. Because one ship got blocked in the Suez Canal. And the shipping of the world went for a toss. Next. So these superpowers will use everything possible. The color of the skin, religion, everything. All is fair in love and war. So to control these choke points, they will go to any extent, any extent. There's no limits. Absolutely no limits. This is the Suez Canal, a satellite photograph. Next. The city of Suez. Next. This is the Red Sea Canal. They built. It's part of the peace plan for the Palestinians, and if it works out, that's it. The Red Sea proposed pipeline, because they are worried about environmental reasons. Because the Dead Sea is the lowest point on Earth. Even if you don't know how to swim, you will not sink there, because the salt water content is such that you will float. Next. Yeah, this was all surveyed in 1915, huh? Much before. 1915, all these surveys were done, the route of the canal. Next, next. See, this is how it all goes. So this is another option for the Suez Canal. Next. Yeah, you see here, you can see that very clearly. Gulf of Suez, Gulf of Aqaba, and that triangle is Jordan, Israel. Next. This is Aden, which is south of Yemen. I live in a house which used to be called, it's a 100-year-old house, which used to be called Aden Villa, and built by a Parsi gentleman who went from Surat just after the Suez Canal was opened up. And as an ordinary tailor, he started set up shop there, and he became the biggest ship handling agent on the East African coast. So Aden was the first port of call after Bombay for the British. So this route from Bombay, Aden, Suez, Gibraltar, and London. This was the shortest route from London to India, and it was called the lifeline to India by the Britishers. It was called the lifeline to India. See, I always say we need to go deeper. Princess Diana had an Egyptian boyfriend. If you go deeper, you might find a lot more things there. Why she had an Egyptian boyfriend, or how did the Egyptians get one of the crown jewels of the British industry, Harrods, the store? How did an Egyptian get to buy it? No, I keep wondering all this. So this is Aden. Aden is in a defunct volcano. Next. There's major civil war going on there. This is the entry into the Red Sea. That's where Aden is. Opposite there is Djibouti. Djibouti used to be a French colony. And now the Chinese have got a base there. And they're building a bridge across from Djibouti from Africa into Asia. Aden is in Asia. Djibouti is in Africa. And it's a $10 billion contract already awarded by the Americans. I don't know. I just can't figure it out all myself. And it's called the Bridge of Horns. They're building twin cities there. They're called the Al-Nur cities, the city of lights. And the contract has been awarded, guess to whom? One of the biggest construction companies of the world. Any guesses? No, the Bin Laden Construction Company. The contract has gone to the Bin Laden Construction Company. And these cities will rival Dubai. Work is on. Construction work is on. The Al-Nur cities, one in Africa, one in Yemen. And that's why the civil war again there. There are a lot of reasons. When you go deeper, the more you'll understand. I'm just giving you an introduction to this subject actually. Next. This is Dubai on the Gulf of Hormuz, a little bit inside. There are a lot of sensors out there to check out what's happening. Next. This is what India, Iran, and Russia are building. And there's a lot of, they expect a huge amount of cargo in the next 6-7 years on this. This is the shortest route into Central Asia. Kazakhstan is the largest landlocked country in the world. And Iranian Railways has helped Iran double track their railways. There's a port there called Chabar, which India has built. We have put in more than $200 million there. I've been to Chabar myself. And that is the entry into Afghanistan. See, and this is what the Chinese have built. Just 170 kilometers away from Chabar is Gwadar, parallel, the China-Pakistan economic corridor. So these are two ports right there in the Persian Gulf, deep sea ports, one built by the Chinese, one built by the Indians. We are in Iran, they are in Pakistan. And this is why the Kargil war also happened, the Karakoram Highway and POK and all that. This is all the, like, if you have the questions of history, you'll understand if you understand geography. There's a whole network being built of highways, which the Chinese are calling the Belt and Road Initiative and a whole lot of things. Next. The Trans-Asian Railways. The Chinese have moved cargo from China into Germany by train, but like I told you, road transport is very expensive. It's the most expensive. Rail is cheaper, but still, how many rakes can you move? One rake has got 40. If you double track, it's 80. But a ship can take 20 containers. A railway can take 80 containers. Next. This is the Cape of Good Hope. The Portuguese reached here in 7 years of the fall of Constantinople, but they couldn't navigate the Cape. It took them a lot, 30 years more, to understand how to navigate the Cape. Because it's a very rough waters. Ships pitch and roll at the same time here. That's how the waters are. Next. This is Cape Town. And the 11th choke is the Straits of Malacca. See, during the Second World War, Winston Churchill was in a dilemma whether to let Singapore fall to the Japanese or to let London fall to the Germans. So he said, let Singapore fall. And Singapore fell, and London was saved, and UK was saved. So the Straits of Malacca, there's a lot of piracy there. And here there is this island of Bali here near the Lombok Straits. So the bigger ships which cannot go through Malacca, ships are classified as Malacca Max, Panamax, Suez Max. That's how ships are classified, through which they can go through the canals. Next, yeah. This is Singapore. Yeah, next. This is Bali. Bali is a Hindu island in a Muslim country. The culture of Bali is all Hindu even today, despite of hundreds of years of Islamic rule there. And there's a reason. We Indians controlled it. Raja Rajendran Chola controlled it 1,000 years ago. There's a lot of trade there. There's Ganpati and Lakshmi and Saraswati. In fact, if you understand Bhasa in Indonesia, if you really pay attention, you can understand most of it because it's all Sanskrit based. Bhasa Indonesia, most Indians will be able to understand if you pay a little attention. Next. Yeah, next. So there's a possibility to build another canal here in the Isthmus of Kra. That's where Burma and Thailand and Malaysia cross. So there's a possibility to build a canal. The Chinese are willing to build it again, but there are a lot of issues. There are a lot of insurgency, a lot of problems. Maybe the Rohingya issue. So many issues are linked to this. Because the Chinese won't have to go through the Straits of Malacca. See, for us, the Indian Navy, the Malacca choke is the most important choke. Because our Andaman Nicobar Islands are there. That's how we keep a track of the Chinese. And it takes the Chinese 14 days to come into the Indian Ocean from China. And that's why we can choke them. Next. See, this is how the oil of the world flows. This is the choke points. This is how the flow of the oil. Next. And this is how the undersea internet cables. To link it up with what MRC is doing. See, there is no other way to go. That's how geography. See, we keep saying that change is the only constant. I beg to differ. Geography is a constant. And human nature is a constant. We all want to be alpha. We all want to be alpha. If you look at the history of the world, there have been many empires. America is the most recent one. There have been the Persian Empire, the Mongol Empire, the British and Egyptian empires, huge empires, which were invincible in their days. So the Spaniards, the Portuguese empires. So if you take it in perspective, America has been there for 100 years now. You don't know who will come next. We're already talking about multipolarity. From a bipolar world, USSR, America, to a unipolar moment. And now the multipolarity is being discussed. It's some time away still. You can't pronounce the death of America so soon. But the dollar is under threat. It's being questioned. The supremacy of the dollar is being questioned. India has launched its own UPI. You've tied up with Singapore now, pay now. See, if you understand this, you'll understand a lot of the newspapers you read much better. Much, much better. And this is something which no one tells you. No one tells you. I didn't get it in one piece. In all my different parts of bits and pieces, I put this together. Because my friends told me, अरे ये सबको बोलना चाहिए. So I said, मैं तो बोलता हूँ, लोग सुनने भी तैयार होना चाहिए. So I'll take a break here. So I'd like you to sum up. I know you have to leave.
I wanted to be with you till the end and ask you some difficult questions, but I'll spare you. No, it was really a great pleasure being here, and I learned a lot listening to the presentations. I'm sure we'll have many more opportunities of joining together in such functions, and maybe more people here will also understand the importance of what MRC is doing, and then probably will want to contribute their knowledge to the whole process. This is a very interesting topic which Praful is discussing. In fact, uh, they have, you said, to, I should say why things happen. Causes of things. Why a certain behavior you see in a society, in an individual, in a country, globally, there are reasons behind that. And how the geopolitics behaves or has behaved in the past, uh, these are the reasons for that behavior. People went all the way, they paid heavy prices in terms of life and material and money, only to sit on those gates, because these were the gates. And those who controlled these gates, you said 11, I'll say 12, maybe one more if you can add a couple of more. If you sit on those gates, you are the controller of those highways, right? So I'm sure people must understand more. We should teach our people more of these things. Because otherwise, when we do certain things, the ordinary people say, "Hum kyun kar rahe hain? Oh, it's very far off. Why are we going there?" Right? So you mentioned, for example, there's our connection to Central Asia through Iran and China coming all the way down through Pakistan. And an ordinary person is not able to understand why they're doing it. Right? Now, if you have to avoid those choke points, you have to find a what is called plan B, right? These are all investments into plan B. They may never use it, right? So I really wish you all the best, Arnab. This is midway. So sorry, I'm leaving. Wish you all the best. I thank you all, please. Thank you so much. Yes, always.
So you wouldn't miss your flight now. Thank you, thank
I
you.
know where to go.
Thank you, thank you. So this is how the cables of the world go. The Russians have threatened it. See that they would cut these cables. And you can know there was a disruption and we didn't have internet services for a few days in between. See, the Americans have gone and blown up the Nord Stream. Now you can imagine what the Russians could do if things get worse. See, it could go to any extent. See, they have already threatened, the Russians have already threatened that the Americans should not forget that they have a soft underbelly in Texas. That's where all the oil refineries are, and that's where. So you don't know. These things are possible, but we need to understand how this is the structural view of things. Once you understand this is like seminal reading. You know, once you understand this, a lot of things will fall in place. And I can promise you now, you'll never look at the world map in the same way again. You'll never ever look at the world map in the same way again. Next. See, this is look. Yesterday I was saying about India's position on the world map. We are a blessed country. God is an Indian. I'm convinced God is an Indian. Look at the location of India. No other country has a better location than this. No other country in the world has a better location, a geostrategic location than India. We are the only country in the world with an ocean named after it. You know what's my mission? I was asked to introduce myself. I forget to tell you the how I introduce myself. I call myself a cyber coolie because I'm a logistician. And my mission in life is to build or to enable or whatever little I can do, Kharita Vata in Marathi, to build a Samudra Bharat. Because unless we become a Samudra Bharat, we cannot be a Samruddha Bharat. We cannot be. It's period. You cannot be a Samruddha Bharat if we don't become a Samudra Bharat. So this is it. This is India and the Indian Ocean. The only country with an ocean named after it. Next. But we don't look at it. Just take 2 minutes to read this. Just take a moment. This was reported in the Indian Express in 2009. The date also is there. The Chinese had made an offer to the Americans that why don't you take the Pacific and give the Indian Ocean to us? They're trying to do a deal over the Indian Ocean. The problem with us is because we are a continent, we have a subcontinent, we have a continental culture, whereas we should have a maritime culture also because we have got an ocean named after us. The Chinese refuse to call the Indian Ocean the Indian Ocean, they call it the Western Ocean. And if we don't claim it, we can't blame anyone today. We have to wake up to the ocean. You know, I always give this example. In 1498, Vasco da Gama landed on Indian shores, opening up the route for the Europeans to come. And they all came. The French came, the Dutch came, the British came, the Portuguese. After the Portuguese, everyone came. Right? In 1998, they celebrated 500 years of the voyage to India. They built a big memorial in Lisbon, Vasco da Gama. I've been there. 500 years later, they built this big memorial to Vasco da Gama in Lisbon. In 10 years later, in 2008, we had Ajmal Kasab coming by a fishing boat from Pakistan and taking over Bombay. In 510 years, we have not woken up yet. That is the tragedy. As a culture, we need to wake up, as every Indian needs to be aware that we need to be seafaring as well. We need to be looking at our ocean. I'm just stating a fact. Next. See how you look at the world. That's what the world is. See, there is no strategy. Strategy always comes out of the big picture. Unless you take the big picture view, you will never be strategic in your thinking. Never ever. So remember, strategy is also a game of deception. There are many definitions of strategy. But strategy is a big picture view of the world. Now they have this blue ocean thinking and a whole lot of sessions on. So that's how you look at the world, is what we receive is what we perceive. That's how the world is. Next, yeah. This was said by the guy who wrote the Doctrine of the American Navy, Admiral Alfred Thierman. This is what he said 100 years ago. 100 years ago, an American said this. Next. And this is it. I end my presentation here. We have time for questions. Time. Any questions? Anything under the sun, I'll try to answer now. So once you understand this, you'll understand a lot of things. See, all the undersea, that's how because of my interest in geopolitics, I was roped in by a commander. So I've been working for the last 6 years in the Maritime Research Center. And the underwater domain, see, we haven't understood our waters. See, the Americans believe that now the global commons, there are 3 global commons. What is a global common? How is it defined? A global common is that domain, that area, over which no one can have ownership, over which no country has sovereignty. Like ma'am said in the morning, the waters don't belong to anyone. The waters belong to everyone. How do you divide water? How do you divide a weather system? Or how can you say the monsoon is ours? There's no way. Right? So the underwater domain is one of the least understood of the domains. So which are the 3 global commons? The blue waters, the international waters of India, the territorial jurisdiction of India is 12.5 nautical miles. After that, it is the international waters. Second is outer space. And third is cyberspace. So the Americans believe that if you can control these global commons, or if not control them, at least dominate them, they can assure American dominance for the next 200 years. It's a stated policy of the Americans. So if they think like this, what are we doing? What are we thinking? And how should we go about it? If we want to become Vishwa Guru, whatever, we want to become a powerful nation, or Samudra Bharat, Samruddha Bharat, what do we need to do? So we need to pay attention to our waters. Next. See, China has already built a string of pearls, this called. Motiyon ka har, pehna diya humko Hindustaniyon ko. Yes, we have countered it with necklace of diamonds. Next. See, that's Hambantota, Gwadar, then there is Djibouti here, the Chittagong. These are all the Chinese ports which they have built. They call it the string of pearls. Next. This is India's necklace of diamonds to counter the Chinese. This is what we have done. Yeah, next. Yeah. So this is now, see, the Americans changed the Asia Pacific into Indo Pacific. It happened during our lifetime, very recently. Right? So, what is the Indo Pacific? The Indo Pacific is the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. So, who's central? Now, that's how the Quad was born. It's the Japanese, the Australians, India, and the Americans across the Pacific supporting us to contain China. That is what the Quad is. You see that belly of China? So, there is Japan there. This is Australia and India. So, from the east coast of Africa to the west coast of the US, that is the Indo Pacific. Next. So, what is India doing? How are we countering this? Our major ports. We've got 12 major ports and 200 minor ports. So, India is privatizing its ports. Next. And that's how the Sagarmala, port led development, port led prosperity. Next. The Sagarmala project. Next. The major rivers, 111 rivers of India have been declared like national highways, have been declared as national waterways. 20,000 kilometers of Indian rivers will be opened up for traffic, for cargo as well as for passenger traffic. You can imagine the opportunity there. Huge opportunity. All the ships and barges and cruise liners and everything. The Prime Minister recently announced the MV Sagar or MV Ganga in Ganga Vilas, which went from Banaras to Dibrugarh via the water route. All the passengers were Swiss nationals, most of them actually. 20,000 kilometers. We have never used our waterways for transport. You know, I'll tell you a historical example. The Magad Empire, which was Patliputra, the Bihar, modern day Bihar, they always wanted to control Ujjain, which is Central Asia, Central India, sorry, right there in the heart of India, near Indore, Ujjain. Why? Because Ujjain is on the river Shipra, and Shipra is a tributary of the Narmada, which empties into the Gulf of Khambat, is the Gulf of Cambay, at Bharuch. And from Bharuch, they could trade with the Roman Empire. The Magad Empire was trading with the Roman Empire using our Indian rivers, the coastal waters, and that's how it was. More than 2,000 years ago. What have we been doing? We've lost so much of this knowledge. Morning, we had a very good session by Dr. Radhika's session. Fantastic session. And she has such a fine understanding of what it is. It's available on the net. No? Yes. It'll be available on the MRC website. Please do watch it. I'd urge you to please watch it. Next. This is our exclusive economic zone, which is almost the size of the territory of India, the land territory of India. It's almost the size of India. Next. And these are our waters. So all the seabed mining, everything, all the opportunities in the blue economy. Yesterday we were discussing, last 2 days, all the opportunities on the floor of the ocean, the fisheries, oil and gas, all the gas hydrates, everything is there in the EEZ. And that's why the government of India has taken this initiative. We've created this Indian Ocean Rim Association. Next, yeah. See, this is the Indian Ocean and the countries. We have got 44 countries who are our neighbors. See, land borders we share with 8 countries. But 44 countries are just across the Indian Ocean. And it's cheaper to send a container, like I told you, from Chennai to Port Elizabeth, which is the tip of South Africa, than to move it from Chennai to Delhi. Bombay to Pune is more expensive than Bombay to Singapore. Can you believe this? A container can be sent cheaper from Bombay to Singapore than moving it from Bombay to Pune. That's how expensive it is. Because land, there's friction, it has to be drawn. 2 containers can go on a trailer. On a truck, 1 container. A ship carries 20,000 containers. 20, those ships cannot even come into JNPT. So all our cargo gets hubbed into Colombo, and that's how it goes. We don't have a deep sea port. Yes, now Mundra has come up. So this is the rim. And if you look at it, see, the whole of East Africa is English speaking, thanks to the British. The whole of East Africa is English speaking. When I went and climbed Kilimanjaro, the Maasai guide who came to receive me, he said, Namaste, aap India se aaye? I said, yes. So he's telling me, no, on the way to the hotel, there's so many Indians here, they don't want to go up. Why do you want to go up? I said, I want to go up. I mean, they don't want to go up, that's their choice. Then he's telling me, Tame save gatya khaso. A Maasai fellow talking to me in Gujarati. I was wondering, how did you pick up this Gujarati, Onesmo? His name was Onesmo. He said, my landlady is a Gujarati. See, the amount of Indian population there is huge all along the east coast of Africa. Everyone speaks English, except for a few countries like Madagascar or something. Most countries are English-speaking countries because they're all part of the Commonwealth. More than 3 million people in Africa are of Indian origin. More than 3 million people. All from the south, so many of them. 3 million people. That's half the population of Pune in Africa is Indian. If you go to the Gulf, there's a Malayali friend of mine who says if they gave us voting rights, we would have a Mallu prime minister in the Gulf. Right? You want anything done, you hire a Malayali, you see how the work gets done in the Gulf. The Mallu network works like anything. Tamil is official language in Singapore, in Malaysia, and in Sri Lanka. The third largest population in Australia is Indian. So just imagine if this diaspora is activated and we start trading. Bangladesh is fully Bengali. If you go to Pakistan, it's Urdu. Urdu is, you can understand most of Pakistani TV if you listen to it. 80-90% of the language is what we understand. And Hindi movies are a big hit in Pakistan. So if just look at the Indian diaspora, look at the location there, amazing. We are a blessed country. We are a tropical paradise. If only we bother to wake up and take charge of it. And we've been, see, look at the history of the world. The first port in the world is in India, Lothal. They built a museum now. The Prime Minister was there to lay the foundation stones and all that. Lothal is the first port in the world, 7,000 years ago. The first port during the Mohenjo-daro Harappa civilization. That's it. Thank you so much.